What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I am your co-host CJ, here with my lovely co-host ZD on this Monday, August 25th night,
Yes, sir.
and we have a great podcast ahead for y'all.
Yo,
We're gonna be talking about our early predictions for the 2025-2026 Rookie of the Year. And we also have our offseason files for everyone that's been keeping up with us as we're recording throughout this offseason, where we dive deep into a team. And this episode is going to be the reigning NBA champs, Oklahoma City Thunder. And
man,
ZD, sorry, sir, how are you doing today? I forgot to ask you that question before we started to get into it.
I'm good, bro. I'm just ready to chop it up about the Thunder. We got the Rookie of the Year predictions, like you just said, sir. And yeah, what better way to start it off, man? Start off our week like always, just hopping right into an offseason file that honestly is going to be pretty clean. We know what the Thunder bring to the table, but I'm honestly excited to just dive right into the Rookie of the Year race, man. But I'm above ground. I'm feeling pretty good and figured out my mic today. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that's another plus as well. You know, we've been chopping it up for the last 45 minutes, no cutting. So no complaints from me, bro. So I'm just ready to hop right in.
Yeah. It's gonna be a good one, man. Hopefully y'all been keeping up with us. We've been really active this off season. We have some in person podcasts that we have recorded these past couple
Yes,
pods that
sir.
y'all will be seeing soon, and excited to see that. Like we talked about it whenever
That's
we
always a
recorded
plus.
in person. It's always great, and I appreciate any time that I'm able to spend with you, especially in person. So it's super excited for y'all to see that, and
Super dope.
we figured out the whole mic situation now, so we're good, man. Nothing to complain about over here on our side,
Excited,
but. Yeah, if you want to just get right into it, bro, let the people
bro.
know who we think is gonna be some candidates for Rookie of the Year this upcoming season.
Yes, sir. So we got four candidates on our docket today, man. We're gonna start off with our fourth guy. We think this dude's gonna finish fourth. San Antonio Spur, Dylan Harper, man, from Rutgers University. I think it really just comes down to his poise. You know, we spoke about it a little bit before we got into it, but the San Antonio Spurs are just building around Wemby, and like you said, man, they kind of got a log jam at the guard. So figuring out what his playmaking skills are going to be, and for me, the question mark just is the defensive intangibles. I feel like he's a good defender when he wants to be. You know, I spoke to you about this off camera as well, but he gets some steals when he's engaged, man. High effort, high intensity type of guy. We know he's going to be looking to score, which is going to be beneficial. But I think it's just how many minutes is he really going to get? For me, though, Dylan Harper is extremely skilled. We don't doubt him here on this podcast at Three Man Weave. We know what he brings to the table. I think the Spurs drafted him because they saw his offensive capability and they know that just building around Wembenyama is the most important thing. I think he was the best available at this time after the Mavericks took Cooper Flag, but I think he's going to come in and immediately be an impact, bro. There's really, I mean, if you're finishing top five, top four, top three in the Rookie of the Year voting, that's still a great season. He's going to make an all rookie team as long as he stays healthy. And yeah, man, for me, just the question remains, can he be a good defender? And I think similar, I already know your opinion a little bit. I'm sure you'll have the same question marks, but seeing what he did at Rutgers, bro, getting 14 points on almost 50% shooting with those assists, I mean, he's a high level playmaker, and the Spurs can utilize that immediately. So I think he's going to finish fourth, but he's still going to have a strong season. So shout out to Dylan Harper.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said. My only question mark, I think, we talked about it a little before we started, is kind of, that log jam at guard position. I just don't think,
Yeah,
he is,
Fox,
yeah, Fox, Stephon Castle, they have
right?
Vassell still, they have a lot of guards, but I think for him to be in, fourth, as we predicted him to, the minutes that he's going to be playing is going to be very useful and seeing the type of player that he can be. I just think it's going to be these upcoming players are going to have a little bit more of an opportunity to kind of showcase their abilities. And not saying that he isn't
Yeah,
a great player. Obviously, you just said it, and we've been kind of saying these past couple minutes that we've been talking about him. But he's a great player. I think he's going to be very dynamic for them, and like you said, kind of defensively, kind of what he's going to be able to do. I feel like that's something that the Spurs are kind trying to build their identity around. Obviously, with Wemby,
Exactly.
it's kind of it's a
Consistency,
little bit easy to kind of do that,
endurance.
and
Yep.
just kind of seeing the type of
I
player
like
he's
that.
going to be. I'm excited. I think he's going to be great. Carlos actually asked us if we think that the Spurs can potentially have a three-peat for Rookie of the Year, and as of right now, no. But I think if throughout the season, I mean, there he can potentially be higher if an injury happens, or if someone may be out for a little bit of time. He could kind of show why they drafted him at the number 2 spot. So super high on Dylan Harper, ready to see what he can do. And we've been talking about the Spurs a lot this offseason, and even end of
Yeah,
the year,
bro.
trying to just wrapping up their season, seeing what they can be, and the fact that they were able to get the number 2 pick, they're in a great spot. And I'm excited to see what he can end up doing for that roster. So yeah, shout out to Dylan
For sure,
Harper
dude.
and shout out to the Spurs, bro. Shout out to Los, bro. I just want to say, before the season starts, man, I told you so, bro. I told you so. You just had to give it a little bit of time, man. Y'all are getting
There it
there.
goes. Yes, sir. I think if Harper can be consistent, bro, the sky's the limit. I think it's going to be hard for him to to have a horse in this race if he's coming off the bench.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if he's consistent, there's no reason why he's not going to be getting 28, 29, 30 minutes a night
Mm-hmm.
off the bench. So he's still going to fill in that role pretty comfortably. And he's a polished dude, man. He's one of the highest skilled guys we had in the draft this upcoming year. And I think he's going to be able to showcase that. I think the Spurs are building that team, like you said, so shout out to Carlos. I think they're on their way to having a dynasty for sure, especially with Wembanyama. I mean, come on, bro.
Man,
Come
man,
on.
man, man.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah. Going on to the next one. He was the number 4 pick,
Hmm.
the one and only VJ Edgecombe for the University of Baylor. Got
Yes,
drafted by
sir.
the Sixers. We've been talking about the Sixers. We did their offseason files a little while ago. The position that they're in. Feel like VJ is going to be in a great spot to kind of what we were saying about Dylan Harper. I think VJ is in a similar position, but just with the age and kind of the history that we've seen the Sixers getting a lot of injuries throughout the season, it kind of puts him in a position to be, the third person in the Rookie of the Year
Exactly.
race just because of that. I think he's going to have a lot more opportunities, and just the way he plays, super athletic, explosive. I think he's going to be a pretty good defender just off of his athleticism alone. And kind of just, what I'm wanting to see from him is kind of just the development of his offensive game. Like you said, right before we
Yeah.
started, I feel like a lot of these guards, a lot of players that are coming into the league in general are gonna, kind of they focus more on the offensive side of the ball. It's kind of, a dying art of just being a straight lockdown defender or a pass first point guard, or whatever the archetypes that were back in 90s, early 2000s. Everyone
Right.
that is pretty much entering the league can get a bucket. And I think VJ is going to have the opportunities, and with his athleticism and just kind of development of his offensive game, I think he's going to be definitely in the running for Rookie of the Year. And it's going to be incredible to see what how they're going to be able to connect the veterans and the young guys. I think Paul
I think,
George
yeah.
Paul George has been going through a lot of injuries these past couple seasons, but I think he's still a great player, and VJ could kind of learn a lot from him, and even Tyrese Maxey. He's kind of blossomed into a all star, potential
Funny.
superstar if he could stay healthy. And I think when you're getting a young guy that kind of has a lot of potential and just kind of a huge upside, I think it's a perfect situation for him to kind of showcase his abilities and show the league, put them on notice that where they're at. The Sixers it's a weird spot, but they're kind of bridging into the new generation, and I think it's a perfect spot for him. So yeah, I like we like VJ at
Man.
number 3, and I'm expecting a really good season from him, bro. I think, like I said, he's gonna contribute some well minutes, and whenever he's on the court, he might not be scoring the most points, but I think his impact is going to be felt on the court.
What, man? I was gonna say, like, greatly timed minutes, like you're saying, valuable minutes. I think his athleticism, his explosiveness. was gonna say he thrives in transition, bro. You talked about Tyrese Maxey, which I love, but the speed is another thing that I love from him, man. Those two guys going in the backcourt is gonna be scary. We know VJ is a dog, so he's gonna compete on the defensive end, which is another thing that the Sixers desperately need. And I think that he's just a winner, bro. This is another home run pick for honestly, you didn't bring this up, but the Sixers were in danger of losing their pick.
They
And
definitely were,
I
yeah.
know they were super thankful to get VJ Edgecombe. And like you were saying, man, just the type of player that he's going to be able to be from day one. I think it's gonna lead to success. He's gonna have some highlight plays, like I already brought up. I think his transition game is what's gonna open the floor up for all of their veteran guys. You know, you touched on it a little bit, but Paul George and Embiid, they play a little bit slower. And I think the issue was Maxey was playing very fast, but now that they have a running mate for Tyrese Maxey to be able to play at that tempo, I think it's going to lead to some success. And you've touched on just what he's been able to do. I think he was a great scorer at Baylor as well, man. What he did in college, I think, kind of speaks to the NBA readiness that he has. And coming from the Bahamas, man, just from nothing, I think that adds to his story. You know, we're repping him over here at Three Man. We want to see him succeed. I think he's going to have to develop his offensive game, like you brought up, the counting stats, you know, the peripherals, right, the assists, the rebounds. I think he's going to do well on the defensive end, but he's just got to get those up. And I think he's going to have a great year, though. I think VJ Edgecombe is extremely poised, and he's right where he should be. I think he'll finish, you know, 3-2. We'll see him compete for sure if he can stay healthy. So shout out to VJ Edgecombe, bro. You know, I'm excited to see what the Sixers got brewing for us this year with the summer of Joel Embiid and PG and Tyrese Maxey. We know PG won't start day one, but I think VJ is going to be able to make an impact, bro. So I'm excited.
Yes, sir. I agree.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man. Going right into our next player, though. This is number two on our list, so we're creeping into the guys that we think are going to be at the top of the running for this year's Rookie of the Year. But it's none other than Trey Johnson from the Washington Wizards, from the University of Texas, man. High-level scorer, one of the best. I said it to you before we started recording, but I think he's going to average the most points, just given his situation. We know the Washington Wizards are in despair. However, drafting Trey Johnson, again, I think all of these picks that we have, bro, they were all home run picks in my opinion. Like 10 out of 10 picks for the situation. Trey Johnson is another example of that. I think Washington desperately needed this type of scorer. For me, what really stands out with him is his ability to score in the mid-range and the post. I think that's very useful at you know, the guard position at 6'6" at his size. And I think he'll have a lot of opportunities, probably the most opportunities out of anybody on this list, just due to the fact that the Wizards are so porous everywhere else. We know that Trey Johnson's going to have the opportunity to score the ball and get some shots up. So I think the biggest factor for Rookie of the Year will be the opportunities, and I think he'll have plenty of it. But yeah, Trey Johnson, man, I think he's easily the best scorer that we have in this draft. All the film that I saw at UT, you know, we got an opportunity to see him, which was an unbelievable experience. Yeah. So I'm thankful for you. Obviously, shout out to God for allowing me to do this with CJ. But we got a chance to see him, man, in person, and just seeing him score that quiet 20. I know he's going to immediately do that for Washington, bro, and just getting 15, 20 shots up, playing 30-plus minutes a night. I mean, we know that's going to add up to a lot of success. So I think the stars can align for Trey Johnson here. And if the Wizards can go over their win total, I think it's at like 22.5. I mean, he'll have a chance. He'll have a chance. So shout out Trey.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, man. I think, you know, being able to watch him play in person and just kind of seeing the type of player he is, like you said, a quiet 20, and, you know, which is crazy because 20 points is a lot of buckets, and, you know, the fact that he was able to do that pretty much all season. I think he was
from the line.
Was he the
mid-range? He's
the most points averages as a freshman at UT since KD. Yeah. I think that kind of goes to show the type of player he is, and, you know, just he's definitely, I believe he's the most polished offensive player in this draft as well. I think he's going to average the most points from this rookie class. And, you know, with the Rookie of the Year award, it is really just based off of the stats and, you know, what are you averaging points, you know, whatever it is. Like, they don't really take into account the wins. And, you know, I think we said,
exactly.
I think we said they, in our prediction, that they were probably going to go over, though, right?
Yeah.
So I think, you know, that taken into consideration, right? Yeah, I think, you know, just the situation, you know, like you said, I think a lot of this award is really based off of opportunity, and just with the
Exactly.
roster that the Wizards have right now, I think it's just a perfect plug and play type of player for them. It's something that they're missing, kind of a consistent offensive option, and him potentially being, not saying he's going to be the number one option, but he has the potential to be. And at some times throughout the season, I probably expect him to be leading the team in scoring for certain games. And with that
I
being
agree.
said, I think it just kind of goes to show, you know, what he's going to be able to do for them. And that was something they were missing. I think they have, they have an older roster as well, with a bunch of younger guys. So it's going to be interesting to see
Middleton.
um, with him. I don't know if he's going to be. Well, no, I think we were talking about it, right? He might
Yeah, he'll start.
he might be starting. Yeah, I think just with the being taken at
Yeah, he's
the
yeah,
pick he was, and like I said, just being the most polished offensive player in the draft, I'm excited to see what he does. And I'm pretty comfortable putting him at 2 as well.
yeah. Let me ask you this. What do you think Wizards fans are most excited about for this upcoming year?
I would say Trey Johnson,
Oh,
honestly.
you're exactly right, my man. There you
I
go.
would.
So just that answers the question for everybody watching. I think if you're a Wizards fan out there, we understand your situation. We get it. I know CJ understands it more than I do, but hey, he doesn't suck that bad. The Thunder just won a championship, so
Right.
I don't know about all that. But we get the situation that you guys are in, and we know you're excited for Trey Johnson. So I think we don't mind comfortably putting him at second on our
Mm-hmm.
list for sure.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree. And then number one, I think it's kind of expected, right? Number one
Yeah,
pick, the one and only Cooper Flag with the Dallas
man.
Mavericks. What can I say, man? I feel like for everyone that doesn't know, he was in talks of being the generational talent. I know I asked you that question early on in this past season, and if he is that type of player. And I think what he was able to show me at Duke, he is an all-around player. Honestly, he's like a do-it-all forward. He could defend, he could pass, create his own shot, can score pretty well. I think, especially, we keep talking about it, opportunity. And with Kyrie being injured, Anthony Davis, love him, great player. We're going to see how healthy he could be this upcoming season. I think Cooper Flag is really kind of their saving grace, especially after that
I
Luka
agree.
trade. I think perfect situation for him to kind of step into that role. And I think he's going to step up to that challenge. I think with the player he is, I think he
Yeah.
can impact the game in multiple ways. And I feel like, with these other players, it's either one or the other, or like it's either offense or defense, or offense or strictly relying on that. And oh, we'll see what they can do defensively, or vice versa. And I think with Cooper Flag, he could kind of like I said earlier, he's a little bit of do it all. And I think he's going to get the stats to kind of reflect that. And the success of the team as well, like I said, doesn't really rely so much on the rookie of the year, but that is going to be a huge part of that. And I think, with Kyrie being out, just, kind of seeing if he can be an initiator of the offense, and kind of like seeing how he
Right.
plays off of AD and everyone on that roster. It's going to be exciting, man. I'm super excited to see what he can do. And, just seeing his ascension from high school at Duke, seeing what he did there, it translated perfectly. I think it's going to be the same situation in the league. I have no reason to
Yeah.
think otherwise, and I'm assuming ZD as well. We see the type of player that he is, and just kind of, the Mavericks. They got blessed with
Got it.
getting the
They
number
got
one
one.
pick in this draft. I think
Yes, sir.
he's gonna fit right into what they're trying to build on the defense side. And I'm excited, bro. I'm super excited. I think there's a lot of hope in Dallas again, which, after everything they've been through this past season, is something, I know that fan base is super excited to look forward to. And this is the guy, like this is
He
the
is the guy.
the person that, we were talking, given that generational tag to. And he has a great opportunity to show us what he can be able to provide for the Dallas Mavericks.
Man, that's a yeah. And you know what? The Cooper Flag talks have been quiet since summer league ended with only 2 games. Man, showing out, getting the 30 ball, and we saw what he was going to be able to do against NBA competition. You brought up a really good point. Can he be an initiator? I think we know the talent, we know the athleticism, the skill, the length. Pause at 6'9". We know what he can do on the defensive end. Come on, man, but I think the question just remains: can he just be the leader of a team offensively? And if he can answer that question, I think he's going to win Rookie of the Year. I think you did a really good job of explaining the use case for him on the defensive end. His offensive ability is very rounded out. We know he's very polished. We know what he did at Duke too, winning College Player of the Year last season as a freshman, which is absolutely crazy. He's a very developed prospect, and we know, like you said, through high school, Montverde, Duke. I'm sure he's going to be doing some of the same stuff in the NBA. He's gotten comps to Kawhi Leonard, two-way superstars like of that nature, and I just think Cooper Flag's in a perfect spot, right? You brought it up. Kyrie's hurt. I think Jason Kidd is going to lean into him bringing the ball up. We know Anthony Davis and his injury history, but I think one thing he's going to bring is the consistency and durability. To be honest with you guys, I don't see Cooper Flag going out for nagging injuries here and there. He seems like an ultimate competitor, a guy that always wants to be out on the court. In fact, speaking of summer league, he asked if he could keep playing, and they had to shut him down. But obviously, can't let your number one pick go out there and get hurt. But
Right.
I think it just goes to show you the type of fire that he has, even being the number one pick and kind of knowing. Because I think we all knew this draft last year that who the number one pick was going to be, and I'm sure he knew. But it's just I've been very impressed with his poise and what he's been able to show us so far, and I know that's going to translate to the NBA. I think he's going to earn his stripes. We know all the great ones have. I think he's going to go through a mountain. The Western Conference is very difficult. You said it. I think the Rookie of the Year has something to do with opportunities and team success. If you can show that you can win in a tough conference like the Western Conference, there's really no reason for Cooper Flag not to get to the Rookie of the Year award. But I think this is a pretty good list, man. It seems like all these guys have a chance to compete for it. I think Dylan Harper, Edgecombe, Trey Johnson are going to be kind of flip flopping each other, but I feel like Cooper Flag will pretty much solidify himself as the runaway favorite. But I wouldn't bet it, man. I still feel like Trey Johnson has an opportunity to overtake him if he can get 25 points. This is a shooting star situation, right?
That'd be
Like
crazy.
25 points, 4 assists, 4 rebounds. I mean, you're looking at a potential Rookie of the Year as well. So stay away from it on FanDuel. We know it's at minus 200. There's really no reason to take it. So that's it for me, man. I think we got a pretty solid list.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. Man, I think I'll start this one off, man. I think it's only
I'll
right.
let you go through it.
I think
I'll
it's
let
only
you do your
right.
thing.
For everyone that doesn't know, I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. We've been doing a series in our podcast called OFFSEason Files, where we dive deep into a team. We talk about three of the players that they're building around. We go into their cap space, and we talk about some of the on and off the court improvements that they can do to, do what the Thunder were able to accomplish this last season. So, starting it
Yeah,
off, man, going
I'll
into
go
the
kid.
three players that we believe, I'm pretty sure everyone can probably assume that the three players that the Thunder are building around. First and foremost, Shea. Reigning MVP, all the accolades. I don't want to reiterate them. I've said it multiple times. Yeah, just coming off the season he just had, and really the past 3 seasons that he's had, I think he's solidified himself as top two in the league. People say Jokic, people say Shea. I would say Shea personally, but just what he's been able to do, being able to provide on really both sides of the ball. I think what he's able to do on the defensive side gets overlooked by what he can do offensively. But he's no slouch on that the defensive side of the ball, and just being a leader. That's what I was really impressed with. I think it's incredible to see him at such a young age kind of step into that role, like being that guy. I feel like that's something, a lot of players don't, they want to, but they want to be that guy, but I think it's a lot harder than they think it is. And being able to
Yeah,
lead a young group of young men that, to the mountaintop, says a lot about him. And just being able to do what he did this past season, maybe the best season I've ever seen personally, and
no
just kind of
doubt.
seeing them go through a lot of struggles. And he was our guy in the fourth quarter, big moments of huge games. And like I said, just being the leader, bro, that's really what I was impressed with. Obviously, just got that extension, 4 year, $273 million. It doesn't kick in until next year. So these next two players were able to also get their bag. And I think it's clearly SGA. And anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, man. I think he's been the very quiet but clear leader. You brought it up. The last 3 seasons, man. First team All NBA appearances. Last season, winning an MVP, winning a Finals MVP, clearly winning an NBA championship. I think Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is potentially, on a Hall of Fame run here. I don't want to overstep boundaries, but it's been pretty clear what he's been able to do. He's been one of the best players that honestly any franchise can build around. One of the best players we have on any list you'll see in an offseason file. So I think the Thunder are very blessed that the Clippers were willing to do that trade. And I think just speaking about Shea's history, man, you've done a good job of tempering your expectations. I know you don't want to ramble on too much about it, but I think he's clearly like, not top three, not two, the one.
Yeah.
And we've seen what he's done over the last few seasons. And I think at this point, I wrote it in the outline, but he's the greatest Thunder player of all time, right?
100%.
That's trip over my words. I mean, but
No, yeah.
at this point, what we've seen so far, the things that he's shown, CJ and I, on a day in, day out basis, I think it's clear who the number one player they're building around is, and he's been that guy, and he will continue to be that guy for the next 4 to 5 years. I don't see Shea leaving the Thunder. I think it would take a lot for him to leave that place. So shout out Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, clearly the number one guy that we have on the list.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I agree. I don't see him leaving anytime soon either, man, unless something crazy happens.
Anything can happen.
Right, anything. Yeah, we've seen some crazy things this past season. So, but yeah, no, I agree. I think greatest Thunder of all time, just being able to take us to that mountaintop, something that we hadn't done in our history as a Thunder. Yeah, for sure, he has to be the greatest. So, going into our next player though, number 2 player that we think the Thunder are going to be building around, the one and only Jalen Williams, J-Dub, being able to, kind of solidify himself and, step into the scene as being the co-star, or some might say the Batman or the Robin to Batman, coming off of an all defensive second team, all NBA third team and making an all-star. I think it was incredible season for J-Dub. And my thing with him, man, was just, seeing, after the finals, after everything, that injury that he had, in the whole playoff run, really. I think it was towards the end of the season, seeing that he was able to fight through that, I just kind of solidified him as a legend, a Thunder legend in my book, and seeing his defensive ability, being super versatile, being able to play center at moments of the season whenever Chet and Hart were injured. Seeing just how versatile he is. I think he's a perfect co-star for Shea, and just his offense ability. I think he's coming off that injury. There was some question marks for me. Not super crazy, but just is his jump shot just inconsistent, or is it the lights are too bright right now? Like, what was it? And obviously, we didn't know at the time, but reflecting on it now, it was the wrist injury in his hand, his shooting hand. So it's hard to be consistently having a consistent jumper, and I think what he was able to show me throughout the whole year, really, it was just an injury that wasn't known at the time. But I think him getting that extension, 5-year, $240 million, it was incredible. I think it was a much needed extension. I feel like it was kind of lingering in the air, like, oh, is who's gonna be on this team for a while. And the fact that we were able to get Shea and J-Dub just kind of showed us that we're gonna be in contention for the championships, and maybe a back-to-back for the foreseeable future. Yes, sir.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man. And J-Dub putting up 40 points in the finals with a torn ligament in his wrist just goes to show you the Mamba mentality that he has. RIP Mamba. Recently, we just passed 824.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man, it's J-Dub's just proven to me and you and the entire league that he is here and he's here to stay. I mean, the fact that he was an all-star, made an all-defensive team, made an all-NBA team, he had a career year, bro, and he deserves every penny that he got. I think the Thunder are extremely happy that he's developed at such a rapid pace. Even Shea, we just spoke about Shea for a couple minutes, but he's spoken on how J-Dub's changed his game and how he's just brought out the best in everybody. everybody in the entire Thunder organization speaks very highly of him, and I think J Dub's earned his place and the right to say that he's a max guy and he's the running mate to Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I think on any other roster in the league, you're looking at an alpha type of player. But I think the only reason he's Robin is because there's a Batman already on this team. But yeah, them being a duo, to me, they're the best duo in the NBA. I just think that J Dub and Shea together kind of trump any duo you can give me right now. And it's just because of the two-way ability. And we know what J Dub can do on the defensive end. Like you said, Shea doesn't get a lot of credit for that. But I'm excited to see what he can do next year, man. We didn't talk about that, but him coming back healthy, a champion, right? I think he's also creeping up into one of the best Thunder players of all time as well. If he can continue to be consistent too, he just brings out the best in everybody. So shout out Jalen Williams, bro. You did a good job of explaining, but he's definitely the second guy they're building around, man. I know Sam Presti is extremely excited to have those two guys for the foreseeable future, like CJ had mentioned. And I think they're going to be competing for NBA championships for the next 3 to 5 years, as long as those two guys are in their backcourt.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the things I didn't bring up that I love about J Dub is just his intensity. It reminds me a lot of like what Westbrook was for us, and I feel like that goes a long way. Not even just like for fans, but for the team. For the roster, for everyone in the organization, they see how passionate he is, and when he gets a big dunk, he's yelling and he's barking at the crowd. He's doing these things that gets everyone hype. I feel like that something that kind of a casual fan might really not think much about it, but it goes a long way. It kind of shows that he's like the heart of the team. Obviously Shea is
Right.
the leader. He's doing these things for us, but Jada brings that intensity and brings the passion, man. I think that's something that I talked about in the last pod or short that we shot. That Russ. That's why I love him so much as a player, and just why I am the way I am whenever I'm being competitive and stuff. I just wear my heart in my sleeves. I feel like J Dub is kind of being that for this roster, and it goes a long way, man. I feel like that's something that gets overlooked a lot, but he's the reason why everyone gets hype and amped up and
Excited, yeah,
excited
bro.
for the
Yeah,
game
dude.
and everything. Yeah, no, it's a shout out Jada, bro.
Shout out
Can't
J-Dub.
wait to see what
Yeah.
he does this season, and hopefully he can repeat the accolades that he was able to accomplish this last season. That would be like you said, he's slowly creeping up there, being
He will.
one of the Thunder's best players. So going into our next player though, I'm pretty sure everyone knows the big man holding down the paint, Chet Holmgren. He's easily the best defensive player on the team. He has the most
Yep.
potential, I would say. Very versatile. Offensive game is something that I think I hope he could kind of polish, and I think this offseason is going to be something that he's going to be working on. But defensively, something you don't need a question about him. I think I
Not at
think
all.
last year I projected him to win DPOY, and then obviously he got injured. But I think with this upcoming season, coming off of being a champion, just being able to get to that mountaintop, achieve something that all kids dream of doing. I think it's going to be incredible. And coming off that extension as well, he's also was able to get a 5-year, $240 million extension, just like J Dub. So we were able to lock our core in for 4 to 5 years, and just seeing what he can do, man. I'm super excited. I think I've talked about him a lot throughout the season, and just kind of
Yeah, you did.
being a
You were
unicorn.
very high on him.
Very high, bro. I think being like a unicorn of a player can sometimes be a bad thing for a young guy, just because he can do so much, and it's kind of where can you specialize in. I think Chet, obviously getting to the weight room, getting a little bit stronger, that's gonna be a given. I think his frame is a little bit skinny, but being 7'1", 7'2", whatever he is, with the crazy wingspan and just the ability to hit shots, it kind of has him in a spot where, like the Wembys of the world, you know what I mean? Like just being able to do so
Yeah.
much. I think this
Right.
upcoming season, I'm super excited to see what he does, and hopefully praying for a full healthy season from him, like he was able to do on
Right.
his actual rookie year, his second year. But since he was out his whole first year, but he's shown that he could do that. He could play a whole 82 games throughout a season. I think this upcoming year, I think it's very very bright future for him. I think
Yeah, no doubt.
potential all defensive type player, all star, and then maybe creeping into all NBA. Depending on how well statistically he has, but I'm super excited, man, and being able to have these three guys on our team, it's a blessing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't take it for granted. I don't look past any of this because they were able to him specifically in that game 7. I think he has the most blocks in a game 7
Yep.
history. Just
Yeah,
stuff
his
like that.
defense shine.
Defense is
Oh
shining,
man.
man. It's something that I think we were lacking these past prior playoff runs that we were looking for him or looking for that type of player and expecting a huge season from him, man. I think, like I said, offensively he's going to be more polished and get into his spots, and if he can get that consistent jump shot, that three point shot, it's going to be dangerous, man. I'm super excited,
Gonna
man.
be rap.
Just being able to see this trio for the foreseeable future, man, it's very hopeful for me being a Thunder fan.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I think you did a great job of explaining that. I don't have too much to add other than the Thunder are really excited to have him be a centerpiece. The only question for me is just his health. I think they signed him to a 5-year deal, which signals that they are willing to obviously pay the price. To be honest, I mean, Chet Holmgren's missed a ton of time. That's the only question mark in the Thunder's core is really if can Chet stay healthy. But outside of that, like you just brought up, man, his ability to be an offensive unicorn, and then we know he's a defensive stalwart, man. We saw what he did in Game 7, having the record for the most blocks, and we know that he's a high performer too. He's a competitor, similar to Shane and J Dub. We've seen what he's done at the highest level now, and I'm just excited to watch him and Wemby go at it for the next, I don't know, man, decade most likely. But yeah, bro, I'm really happy with how Chet Holmgren's career has turned out so far, and what a way to cap off last year with winning an NBA championship. So shout out Chet Holmgren, bro. I know you're very high on him. I know obviously the Thunder organization is very high on him, but they've got three guys that are clearly some of the top 50 players in the league, to be honest, which is not a lot of teams can say.
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But I'm ready to dive into their payroll and their cap situation. Like CJ already brought up, man, the way we do it on the show, we go through their building around, which we just did, and we get into their cap situation, their balance sheet, as we like to call it, and then we go through some of the on the court, off the court improvements they can make. But let's get right into it, man. I think I was looking at their balance sheet earlier. Total active payroll is 186 million. They're about $8 million away from the first apron and $20 million away from the second apron. So the Thunder are pretty comfortable right now where they sit with how much money they're paying their guys. The reason for that is because they got dudes on their rookie contract still. CJ touched on this for a second, but I'll add some more to it. I think Sam Presti has done a brilliant job, probably the best job in the NBA. There's not another team that you're going to see that's constructed this way, and I think it goes to show why they've had so much success over the last 2 seasons specifically. But what the Thunder have been able to do is going to be modeled for the next decade or so. I feel like just going forward, the model for how you build a team. You build guys through cheap rookie contract extensions. We didn't talk about this, but Chet Holmgren, J-Dub, they completely outplayed their value last season. I mean, even with Chet being injured, I mean, I don't have the number in front of me, but I think J-Dub was below $15 million. Same with Chet. So you're getting them at a steal there, and then winning an NBA championship on top of that. I mean, their active roster is less than $190 million this upcoming year. There are no worry about being in any apron. They have one of the best balance sheets currently in the NBA, and I think moving forward, we talked about this briefly, but the extensions will come into play here. I think it's worth it, though. To be honest with you guys, if you win a championship, you never have to apologize. There's a reason the Thunder opened the checkbook. Presti knew this was coming. Gilgeous-Alexander, Williams, Holmgren, that core duo will be worth about $190 million. So they will be paying a hefty penny at some point in the near future, but that doesn't start until I think after next year, which is going to be really important. And they're going to be able to do this again, all over again, and go for a championship. I think a lot of other franchises are actually modeling the way that they want to construct their roster based off of what Sam Presti was able to do with the Thunder. And I think it just speaks volumes of the consistency, being excellent and just really winning an NBA championship for a franchise that's never won one in their history before. I think they've hoarded assets from a bunch of other franchises as well through, well, you could say getting lucky, but I would say just poor management on the other team side, right? Just giving away picks at will. I did want to bring up their draft pick situation too, but they own their picks through 2032, guys. There's no when I said there's no balance sheet that's like this in the NBA, there's really not. In fact, they're owed picks from teams. You know who CJ, the Clippers pick. They have a Utah pick that if somehow Utah's good, that could potentially become a Thunder first round pick if Utah wants to be good all of a sudden. Philly as well. They're just owed a lot of assets because of what they were going through 3, 4, 5 years ago. And they've gone through the mud. They're no longer in the mud. They're at the top of the mountaintop, and they're still reaping those benefits as if they were a bottom of the league, bottom of the barrel team. And so I think it's really a peculiar, unique, and really unheard of situation that we've seen with the Oklahoma City Thunder balance sheet. And moving forward, I think I've said this 3 times, but a lot of teams are going to be doing what the Thunder did or trying to replicate it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. There's not really much to, balance sheet wise. Everything looks good. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's going to get a little expensive. Not this year, but 2026, 2027, that's going to be a little pricey. But I think, besides that, like you said, if you win a championship, there's no reason to be sorry about apologizing for paying your guys. And, with the trio that we have, young guys, like you said, J-Dub is on a $6.5 million contract this upcoming season, which is crazy. But I think, like you said, it's something that we haven't seen probably ever. Honestly, it's like you said, this is going to be like a blueprint for a lot of teams to try to replicate. But obviously, got lucky with the Shea trade. Didn't really know what he was going to turn into. I'm assuming we really didn't think he was going to be an MVP, Finals MVP type player. But I think, like you said, it just kind of goes to show the management of the Thunder and just kind of where they were at, just believing in, trusting the process. Not to take that from the Sixers, but we were in the mud. We were really bad at certain points, but we were able to trade our good pieces and being able to acquire a lot of assets. It's something that a lot of people talk about. It's crazy that we're able to have so many draft picks until 2032, and obviously we own our own, which is great. And the fact that so many other teams owe us picks, it's unheard of, honestly, especially for coming off of a NBA championship.
Exactly.
You don't see that a lot. So
oh man, it's pristine. I mean, it's just it's unprecedented. That's the word.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree. Yeah, man. I think perfect way to wrap that up. Going into our next segment where we strategic improvements. The first part we do is the on the court. So this on the court is their half court scoring versatility. I think
I'm sure you can speak to that.
Of course, yeah. I think the main thing with the Thunder, we were able to cause havoc on the defensive side of the ball, which allowed us to be able to score a lot of points in transition and being able to just when you're able to play so intensive on the defensive end, it puts the other team in a situation where they're kind of playing not timid, but not how they probably would like to. So it just causing havoc. I think that was our main thing. I think we were one of the best defensive team this past season and just scoring off of turnovers. I think that was a huge reason why we were able to win the championship, with the Pacers, being one of the better, not turning the ball over with Tyrese and, just being able to do that just caused so much havoc. I think Jalen Williams, as a secondary initiator and Chet in a pick and pop / pick and roll actions will keep us from becoming too dependent on Shea in the crunch time. I think, the development of those two guys is a huge, obviously we won a championship, so it's not like, whatever, but
Right. It's tough to speak on it.
trying to get back to the top and accomplish back to back. They're going to be a huge
Repeat.
factor of
Yeah,
that. And with that being said, I feel like at times throughout the season we did rely heavily on Shea, and it put us in
for sure.
situations where if he didn't step up to the plate, or if he didn't rise up to the occasion, we would be having probably a whole different conversation. But kind of coming off of that year, I think they saw the holes, the things they can improve on, as we're talking about right now. And that's easily the number one thing that we can improve on, is that half court offense, and really just the consistency of our 3-point shot. I think that's something as well that we can improve on. I think during the playoffs really is whenever it kind of was, it was highlighted for me throughout the whole year really, but
Yeah,
that was when it really mattered the most. And
makes
there
sense.
was moments where we weren't hitting our shots, the 3-point shots, and the games were a lot closer than what they should have been. So that's one of my improvements that I think but that I think they can improve on personally, just kind of seeing what they were struggling with throughout the season, and just kind of going into this next year, if we want to repeat, be the first repeat champions of this decade, that's going to be a huge factor for sure.
Yeah, I love that, man. The way that you explain that is brilliant. We know we've gotten a lot of Thunder talk from CJ this season. So if you guys have been watching, you guys know that he's Thunder faithful. But I think, yeah, the versatility. I mean, dude, think about this. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, fourth quarter versus the Pacers. If he doesn't do it with the last few minutes there,
It
who
would
knows,
we would have been
right?
down 3-1.
So yeah, and like you spoke about it, that was a thing that was popping up earlier in the year. Sometimes it was the reason why they lost down
Mm-hmm.
the stretch, especially. I think they were one of the best offensive teams because, like CJ brought up, their defense was brilliant. So they got out and they ran, got in transition, scored easy layups. But leaning on Shea in the clutch was something that they did, I think, to a fault. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think leaning on your greatest player that you probably had in your franchise history, it's like Michael Jordan. I mean, of course you're going to do that, but I think what CJ brought up, J Dub, Chet, and their surrounding guys, if they can shoot threes, and J Dub and Chet can develop that 2-man game along with Shea, of course, I think it's going to be dangerous, bro. And I think they're going to add to their half court scoring. We know their roster is extremely filled out. iHeart, Caruso, we got Isaiah Joe, the sniper. Like they have a great roster around these guys. So I think the versatility is going to come. They just have to improve and keep building. So solid first point.
Mm-hmm. And then our next point for on a court improvement is guarding the 3-point line, man. I think
Mm,
I could definitely talk about this, bro. This was our Achilles heel
for an
throughout the
hour.
the whole season. I think I've said it multiple times throughout the whole season. Pretty much anytime I watch them play, that is our defense is one of the greatest in history, right? I think statistically we saw it. Have all the records and this and that. But
Yeah.
3-point shots, man, I feel like that's a huge reason why the Pacers were able to take us to 7. They were able to knock those down, and we were kind of just betting on them to take those shots, which it gets very scary come playoff time. It's hard to consistently rely on a team that made it to the finals, or just in the regular season. Any team can catch on fire, and I think that's where we can do a lot better defensively. I think it's kind of a give and take with it, right? Because we are so
Exactly.
aggressive defensively, so we're causing turnovers, we're knocking balls out of passing lanes. It kind of, I think it comes with it. But that being said, I think they can also just rotations adjust better. They can do these things, but it was really the corner threes, bro. Like throughout the
There you
whole
go.
season, that was what I
Yeah,
was
there you
noticing.
go.
It was corner threes just always open, and moments throughout the season, I'm like, man, like, not doubting, right? But just, as someone that, we were watching throughout the whole season, it's, you just eye on certain things that you can improve on. And that was something throughout the whole year. Obviously, like I said, NBA champions can't really, harp on it too much,
Playing.
but it's
Yeah,
something that, it gets
changed too
scary.
much.
Certain matchups, certain teams, they're gonna knock those down. And I think that's something we can definitely improve on. And like I said, I think it kind of comes with it, just the way that we're playing defensively, we're so aggressive, we're so, picking up the player 94 feet, it's this and that. But I think it really just depends on our rotations. You rely so heavily on causing turnovers. If you're not able to do that, and they could kind of get into the flow of their offense, we're leaving that open majority of the time. So it's definitely something I was harping on all year, but we were still able to win a chip, so I can't complain. But that is definitely the other on the court priority that I think
Yeah.
they can improve on for sure.
Yeah, and we saw it, Obi Toppin,
Mm-hmm.
Neesmith, Andrew Nemhard, like
Mm-hmm.
hitting triples against the Thunder that definitely hurt them. We saw Toppin go off and hit a couple threes that were extremely detrimental. So
Mm-hmm.
we've seen that bleed into the playoffs as well. I think for me, that was the only other concern too on the defensive end is like, can they get the corner threes down? And you brought that up.
Yeah.
As you know, we haven't spoke about this, but as the NBA changes its play style, we know that they're leaning into threes. We know teams are going to jack up as many triples as possible, and if they're not, they're playing basketball wrong. We know three is more than two, and we know that's going to continue to be the case with the majority of the other 29 teams. So I think the Thunder got to nip this in the bud early. They will, though. They're one of the greatest defensive teams we've ever seen. I think Mark Dagnall does a great job of scheming the right way, like you said, cutting down on their rotations, figuring out where guys are supposed to be, and I think that's going to set them up very well for success moving forward. So as long as they can continue to guard the 3-point line and guard well, play with high intensity, like you said, picking up 94 feet, that helps. I think they'll continue to have an elite defense.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. But yeah, no, to wrap this up, man, we move on to the off the court improvements that we feel like they can make. To be honest with you guys, the Thunder are probably the one NBA team in the league right now that doesn't have, more than one, two changes to make just because their roster is already so dynamic. But for me, it's going to be future proofing extensions and cap flexibility. And when we're talking about that, we spoke about this briefly, but Shea, J-Dub, Chet, what does that look like? And by that question, I mean, what does the roster surrounding them look like? I think iHeart, Caruso, like eventually those people will leave. We know Isaiah Joe could potentially want to get paid, and Wiggins, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
some guys might have to take pay cuts just to be on the roster, Dort. And that's going to be interesting. The Thunder are going to have some decisions to make. We touched on this too as well. They have a horde of draft picks coming in, so they'll be able to build through the draft. They took Thomas Sorber, who we haven't spoke about yet, but it's another great project that they'll be able to develop. They're going to get Topic back. They'll be able to build through the draft. So that's most likely what they're going to continue to do. They have one of the best developmental staffs in the league. But for me, the only off the court question looming is just what is that going to look like whenever those extensions do kick in, and what is their roster? How are they going to construct their roster surrounding the expenses that they're going to pay? I
Mm-hmm.
think they're going to have one of the most expensive rosters in the league just based on the fact that their roster is really good. It's won championships, and they're willing to pay their guys who they've developed over the course of 3 to 5 years. But that's going to leave, some voids for sure, and it's going to be needed to be filled with role players, guys on veteran minimums, and just cheaper contracts moving forward. If guys take pay cuts, which most likely they'll do because they're a winning franchise, then this off the court priority no longer becomes an issue. But I think making sure that they have flexible cap, understanding the situation of having such an expensive roster, I think is going to be important. But don't put it past Sam Presti. Like I just mentioned, a minute or two ago, the Thunder really don't have too many improvements they can make. I mean, they're looking towards a dynasty right now. I think we spoke about this on the offseason file throughout, but recent finals winner, clearly the best team that we have in the NBA. And I just think every other team is gunning for their roster. The way that they've built it, the type of continuity they have, how much success they've had. I think they've done an extremely good job of building the model for what an NBA team should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
no, I,
really not much else to add.
yeah, I was about to say, yeah, I agree. My only thing is like you said, whenever I mean you said it perfectly, whenever those extension the contract extension, salaries start to kick in,
Again,
what
right.
exactly are we gonna do? But like you said, we're in a position where we have a lot of picks, so we're going to build through the draft, or we're going to, trade something to get a player like you said, veteran minimums, rookie contracts. It's like I said, or like we said earlier as well, it's something that it's unheard of. You know what I mean? To be so
Yeah,
young, win a championship, and have all your assets plus more, and you have a lot of talent that really hasn't been able to prove themselves yet, barring injuries or whatever it may be, just
exactly.
opportunities. It's definitely a great position to be in. But my main thing is probably like really that iHeart contract. I think
Yeah,
that's why we drafted Thomas Sorber. We were able to get another big kind of to replace him in a sense, because obviously Chet is extended, and I think iHeart and then the Carusos of the world, they're gonna, whenever they leave or if we
end up
trade or
going.
whatever,
Yeah,
we could potentially get so many first round picks or first round pick plus a good role player for a player like iHeart. It's like you said, it's not really much. I mean, that's the main concern. I feel like that's a concern with a lot of teams right now. When they're building through the draft, or they have a lot of their picks, and these players are turning into great NBA players. It's you're gonna have to pay them. So it's if
yeah,
you get into the luxury tax, if you do these things, you might not be able to construct a roster that is able to stay under the luxury tax. So that's really
yeah.
it.
That
Yeah, like you said,
penalty.
it's I think
Yeah,
that's the main thing right now with all like the young players we
solid.
have. It's can't complain, man. Not much to
Can't
really talk
complain.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, you wanna close that off-season file for the Thunder, man?
Yeah, yeah, that was our
All
off-season
right.
files, man. I think if we're gonna be able to, really lock in on our half court scoring versatility and guarding the 3-point line, and being able to figure out whenever those extensions and come about, like what we're able to build the team around. I think like we're gonna
Sky's the
potentially
limit.
have a dynasty on our hands, man. So
Dynasty.
looking forward to it,
Yeah.
and I think that's a great way to close off this off-season files for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Yes, sir. You wanted to add anything, or you want to get on out of here?
No, man, I think that was it. This is a great one.
All
I
right.
appreciate your
Yeah,
time as always, bro. Appreciate the audience and the
of
listeners
course.
and the viewers for sticking with us this whole season. And yeah, no, man, not much for me. Is there anything else you would like the people to know before we head out of here?
Nah, man. Just be excited for hoops. That's all I'm gonna say. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe if you guys like the episode, man. Leave a comment, man. Show us some love. But that's gonna do it for your boys over here at Three Man Weave, man. We'll catch you guys next time. All right. Peace.
Peace. Three man, three man, three
Three
man.
Man.